about sex.
Yay!
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about.
Yeah.
Is this the rehearsed part of the show? 5, 6.
Ready?
And hit it.
I don't even know where to begin.
Oh man.
It's just so much.
Can we talk about dating in LA?
Oh man.
I mean, it's a gray area for me. I mean, it's been a gray area for me for so long.
Yeah, that was, I did a dating social experiment where I went out with my hair pulled back, no makeup, and just like frumpy clothes, and to see if I could connect with anybody, just using the principles of like psychology and seduction. And it went really well. I got 100% second dates, and a lot of people put me in the friend zone. They're like, I go on a second date with her, but I see her more as a buddy, you know. But that was okay too as well, because that's just still showing that there was like a root connection there. I think that, again, because it is an imaginary place, it can be whatever you want. I think dating in LA can be fascinating if you take the pressure off of an expectation or result, because you have the most fascinating people, maybe more or less, from around the world, you know, who come here to pursue a dream. You know, these are deeply inspired, deeply motivated, and, you know, hopefully the superstars of their city. So if you don't find a soulmate, like everybody who, when I was dating, you know, before I met Jared back there, who's a slave.
Okay.
But everybody,
Give your boo a shout out.
everybody who I was dating was amazing, which is interesting and cool. And like, there was, funny enough, there's this guy that I dated and it didn't work out. A year later, I was looking to buy some art. I hit the dude back up. Like, there was just a lot of, that was part of the full screen thing too, was I looked at it like, I can't promise you that you'll meet your soulmate, but I promise you, if you just spent a little bit more time on learning how the root of connecting with other people, you'll never have a bad first date again. You'll always walk away learning something, finding something new, discovering something new about yourself, and it will be a worthwhile experience. So I think that if you adjust your expectations, and it's more about like, I want to connect with amazing people, and that's what is here. That's what the strength is of the city. They're not committal people because they've come here to find a dream and hopefully go back home, you know?
Right.
So that's not what their goal is. So you have to, you know, adjust your expectations around that. And then if something comes, it comes. I also think a lot of women make the mistake of not having strict qualifications for the job. You know, if you see a job online that has no motherfucking qualifications, who's going to apply to that? You know, the homeless people, the thugs, like people with criminal records. Like, if you don't have a strict guideline of people, the people who are going to show up for that position are not going to be stand-up people. So you have to create a very stringent list of like, who is allowed to enter my space in that way. You know, who gets an hour of my time? And it's not anybody. It's not the guy who slid in your DMs and like was kind of cute with the flower crown selfie photos.
Oh no.
It's not that person.
That is never happening. Ever. I wish. Okay, so maybe that, I don't know, maybe that's a little sexist. I just, like, if a guy ever slid in my DMs with a flower crown on their head or any type, I don't really like guys who like have selfies.
Oh my God,
me neither.
yes. I had to make that prayer one day. I was like, God, please do not send me don't let my husband be a car selfie guy. Like, I don't ask for a lot. Just don't let my husband be a car selfie guy. But funny enough, on that full screen show, one of the dudes I dated did have the flower crown selfie. Like, it's a literal thing.
No.
And he had all these like Mr. Steal Your Girls, like panty dropper hashtags. But in person, like when you kind of cut through, because like I figured out what his love language was and I figured out what his expectations were just by like doing his social media stalking. And he was like a sweetest person. I just wanted to be like, bro, can I just like reform your life?
Right.
But that's the kind of expectation he thought that women wanted him to be like that.
What are the love languages?
Yeah.
Do you guys know what yours are?
No. I think someone told me this. Someone told me that my love language is gifts. Is that one?
Yeah, it is one. Okay. Yeah, that one has the worst reputation.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I like it. It's like I was
She's
saying.
a Cancer.
Oh, she's a gold digger.
Oh,
It's not though. I think gifts it's a very valid one. They're all, that's the thing. When you break them down, any one can seem desperate. There's physical touch, there's acts of service, there's quality time, there's words of affirmation, and there's gifts. So I'm a physical touch and, acts of service. I like someone to do something, you know what I mean? Like fix that, that shelf over there. Like that turns me on. But gifts doesn't have to be monetary. It can just be somebody who gave you a bookmark. It can be somebody who was like, I know you'd love this podcast. Listen to it. Just showing a actual display. So it's not the gold digger's love language, but it can be too though.
No, it can be. No, I can see
and
how.
that's fair. That's all fair. Where do you
But
think
I
you
ain't
sit?
no gold digger. I'm a
I
gold.
feel like I'm like quality time. Right. GOAL. No. I feel like I'm like quality time. Like I really value that. Like if I can just get like an hour to just talk to you and like get there. I think I'm quality time.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
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 just a little bit of all. No.
And that's, I think, a part of it too is like the unfortunate thing is we don't have the language a lot of the times to describe those qualifications or describe what we're looking for in a partner. You know, we don't know our love language or our sex language or our attachment style or our emotional intelligence score. You know, we don't have a clear list of what we would require in a partner. We're not sure about even ourselves, like what personality traits bring out the worst in us that we know we just can't handle that kind of person. And I think that's just a lack of conversations like these. And so what I hope to do is inspire people, not just to watch my shit, but also to like do this amongst their friends, you know, in a very like unique way, and do quizzes. You know, I love quizzes. Learn what your seduction style is. That's so important. I get so many comments from people who are like, well, I'm not physically attractive, so it's hard for me to meet with people. I'm like, has I ever stopped any ugly dude ever?
Right.
Show don't.
Never.
Show don't.
Yeah.
Man.
They'd be like, hey, yo.
Hey, girl. I'm like,
Let me be funny.
Hey, yo, bae.
Let me be charming. You
Yes.
know, let me be rich.
Right.
Like, let me find another strength, you know, and I think that we all have to do that. You know, it's sell your strengths and buy your weaknesses. You don't sell your weaknesses. You don't make that the focus, because if you do, you've already lost.
Oh, that's
Very
deep.
true.
That is deep. Deep.
Wow. So I know when people confide in you, it's confidential, but what's the main question that people always what's the main question that reoccurs that keeps coming up to you that you have to answer or help when you like do counseling or someone reaches out to you for advice?
I mean, I think it's, am I normal? That's always the question, just remixed in different packages.
Okay.
Like, this is how I experience pleasure. This is how I don't experience pleasure. This is how I feel in a relationship. This is how I feel about my boyfriend's best friend. Like, am I normal? So everyone's just kind of like afraid that they're not okay, that they're off in some regard, or the way that they want or experience pleasure is deviant. So that one, but I mean, majority of like the actual hard question is usually around women and orgasm.
Oh,
A lot.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
listen,
A lot.
I want to ask, how do you squirt? Do you know how to, like, is there
Straight
a,
to the
no,
point.
I'm dead ass serious.
Yeah,
I've
I
always
know.
wanted to know, like, how do you fucking do that shit?
And what is it?
I would say, like, I think it's like it's a porn heteronormative goal, because when men experience pleasure, there is that visual display. I think they want that in return from you because that's what they understand as pleasure. And so it's not like the people I know who can squirt, like I could actually say it. Ari, who was just here, is a squirter, but she's like, I know how to do it. I can do it. It's not linked with orgasm though. You know, it's essentially just putting pressure, because what it comes from is the bladder. And so similarly to men, women have erectile tissue that protects our urinary tract. And so when that urinary tract, when you become horny and that becomes engorged, it releases like a clear fluid. And if you put pressure on that while you're stimulating the clitoris, like, and there's contractions, you know, happening, it's possible that the fluid can come out. But then again, like, it's some people it's a muscle. Some people it happens as a result of orgasm. Some people it never happens. I know people who are like, I hate it. You know, it's an involuntary thing that happens that like I can't control, and I'm not always prepared. I don't have the wet sheet down, right? So I think if you ask a lot dudes, you know, like, how many ways do you orgasm? They're like, one, bitch, and it's amazing. You know, like, and it's for women, we're like, we need 7 different ways.
Right.
Like, one's not enough. Like, however you experience pleasure, you know, just be happy with that. I think it's great to explore. I've been to so many G-spot classes. I've been to so many like, you know, squirting classes, and it doesn't really happen for me. But I like learning about it and knowing about it. But I think it's great that I can orgasm at all. And so if it happens, it happens. If you want to take classes and learn, like, it is about pressure, and it is about being completely aroused, and it is about the stimulation so you get the contractions. And maybe it's not, you know, there's no real need for it. As long as you can orgasm, girl, you're in the right shape.
Okay,
Right.
then yeah, no, I can.
Okay,
and
good.
I have girlfriends who mentioned that they can't orgasm. So what advice would you give them? Like, how can you not? Like, I thought that was natural. I thought everybody can. No?
Like,
Not
5%
always.
can't.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes it's like, I'm speaking for a friend. Okay. No, I feel like sometimes
Judy.
it's like, right. Judy, what's up, Judy? I feel like sometimes it's like, even from my experience, like being with men and like not being able to reach that climax and like having to use a vibrator, and it's just like instant. It's like, how do you kind of like let your man know, like, oh, you know, they just don't know, you know, sometimes. So how do you kind of like, you know, open that conversation to them? Like,
Well, that's even great, because you have to know how to do it yourself. So people who don't, I mean, again, like, less than 5% of people are anorgasmic, meaning they just cannot achieve orgasm.
Oh,
And
man,
there
that
could be
sucks.
nerve damage. Some people have, you know, vaginismus. So there's just different So for some people, it's not possible, and that's okay. You know, you can find your own ways of experiencing pleasure. I always like to say sometimes, like, we all have our own shit. Like, I don't have no allergies. I have the most sensitive vagina. Like, my vulva is just a whiny ass bitch. Like, if she doesn't get like a wet wipe afterwards, she's like yeast infection. Like, she's just that.
Yeah.
But I don't have allergies and I have a great stomach. I can eat whatever I want. I don't get sick. So I think everyone has their own battle. You just, got to roll with the punches of whatever cards you were dealt. But for women, who can orgasm but are struggling, it is knowing how to do it yourself. And there's many different ways. Like, the first time, if you've never orgasmed, I would suggest like using a shower head. Or maybe you need to use a faucet where you just scoot your bum to the base of it and turn the faucet on. Like, a lot of pressure. And you figure out what works for you that way. There's a website that's called Oh My Gosh Yes. It basically breaks down like 9 different ways that women experience orgasm. It's all clitoral, but it's like rhythm, petting, consistent, building, like if finding the language that describes it. Like, I'm a consistent. Once you adjust your situation, that shit floats away. You know what I mean? Like, I need a consistent pace in order for me to reach mine. Mm-hmm. So I think you need to find the language to describe those things to your partner. And so that's unfortunate that we don't get that in sex ed. So we should be taught, like, how do you actively advocate for your pleasure? Because it's a matter of, once you know how to achieve pleasure, you're actually more selective with your partners. And people equate sexual efficacy with promiscuity. It's the opposite. The more that you know, the more respect you have for your body and the more choosier you are with your partners. Yeah. Even if it doesn't matter the number of partners, but the quality of them gets better.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I know my boo is listening to me.
Good sex talk or good sex ed, like any of it just has to be just like good sex. Can't be dry, boring, awkward, predictable, uncomfortable, like stiff. So I think a lot of people make the mistake of like, sex is fun, but then the sex talk is like, so.
Right, I don't want to do that.
Can we talk for a second? Then it's like, oh, this whole thing is terrible.
Right.
Like if it's fun, even the conversation around protection, like if it's fun, like, oh, do you like heat? Do you like rib? Like, what are you into? Like, do you like it when I put it on? Like, do you like flavor? Like, it should be like, even though the goal is like, I do not want you to transmit a sexually transmitted infection as like HIV towards me. So I want you to put on this, cellophane wrap on your penis.
Oh my God,
that's what you really want to say. But like, you package it in a way so the conversation is inviting. And so take the pressure off of it. And even if you use other people, as an example, porn is great for that. Just for us to watch something and then to comment on it, that's external from us. That if talking about it personally feels like it's a blow to the ego, or it could be, or treading like light ground, use porn or use fantasies or dreams. I think dreams are an amazing way to start the conversation. Like, I had a dream last night.
Ooh, that's clever.
Yeah, like I had a dream last night that blah, 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 blah. What do you think about that? Like, oh, really? Blah, 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 And so it's like, and then also starting with your own vulnerability, starting off that kind of topic with a question sometimes is hard. Like, what are you into? What's your favorite position? Like, what's your fantasy? If people don't really know how much they can share. So start, be the change you wish to see in the world. You're going to lead by example, give some vulnerability, put yourself out there. And I think a girl that I worked with a bit ago said that she was sexting somebody and it got really dirty and she was like really into it. And then the person pulled away. And she was like, I was so heartbroken. I just felt so terrible. I'm like, you just did an awesome thing for yourself. You figured out you were not sexually compatible before you had sex. It sounds like an amazing experience, right? Don't be afraid, to go for it and to make it fun and to be yourself and to put yourself on the line. Because I think in the end, whether or not the person freezes up or they completely embrace that, like, you learned a really important bit of information.
Wow. Putting that in my back pocket.
One of my favorite quotes is, the key to happiness is managing expectations. And that has to happen from honest to God day one. And it's okay if you haven't started from day one, but it's totally okay to be like, yo, like, I want to set you up to be successful and I want to be successful. In order for you to do that, you need to know what game I'm in, what I'm trying to play for, what's on the line for me. And so it's just a matter of like, yo, what's your ideal situation right now? Like, when it comes, not just me in general, like, when it comes to people you're attracted to, what is your ideal situation? And what does that look like in a year from now to you? What's important to you? What are your goals? Like, that's more exciting and inviting as opposed to like, what are we?
Right.
It's really like, let me get to know you, understand what you're looking for. Great. In return, like, here's what my ideas are. If at the end of that conversation, you get a sense of like, we're on completely separate playing fields, you may want to just say like, well, And I had this conversation. I was on the View, and this dialogue ended up being all about my relationship style. But it was because a girl stood up in the audience, like, "Hey, I'm a millennial. I kind of feel like dudes these days just put women in this like extended talking phase."
All my girlfriends, I know a lot of people.
Yeah,
it's like being on
myself.
death row. You're like, you don't know when you're gonna leave. Like, you're on death row, but it's like 10 years from now, maybe 10 months. Just this like just extended period of like uncertainty. But I'm like, in a world where you can genuinely open your phone right now and have access to, in the next 10 minutes, 100 different faces and potential people, why the fuck are we in situations that we don't feel like is our best case scenario? It doesn't make any sense, right? Like, so you have to be really clear what you're looking for. And if someone doesn't want the same thing, they don't apply. And that's okay. And it's better for everyone that way. You can never really be your best self. And, you know, to your point of saying earlier, like, being in relationships where you felt like you were giving too much, not receiving enough in return, is like, in a way, you didn't outline what your expectations were.
Yeah.
And every relationship is transactional. It's not supposed to be like a 10-year cash out plan, like keep investing money and then maybe you'll get something back. It should be, I give you $1, you give me $2 back.
Yeah.
I give you $2, you give me $3 back. And we're just completely going back and forth. And everything that we do feels good in that moment. So I never leave feeling like I gave too much.
Right.
Because you should be free to give whatever you want. But that's only if you've managed. You know, when you go to a restaurant, you know what the exchange is. You know what you want and you know what you're giving in return.
Right.
Every relationship should be approached that same way. Like, we shouldn't be ashamed of having those conversations. I had this early on, like, where this dude after date 2 was like, where is this going? Mine just like 23 at the time. So I was still a bit of a shithead. I'm like, oh my God, like, why would he ask me so soon? That's so tacky.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm so turned off by that. And then when I really thought about it, I'm like, it wouldn't matter if it was date 2 or date 20. I knew it wasn't going anywhere. You know, you just know whether or not it's a matter of your own mentality or it's the mix with that person that doesn't inspire you. So it's never too early to start that conversation. But I would suggest, same with sex, like, don't make it hostile. You know, don't make it about an ultimatum. It should be exciting. Like, yo, what is your best situation?
Right.
What turns you on? Like, what makes you excited right now? Like, I want to know that situation so I can take that information and use it against you in an argument tomorrow.
Seriously.
I don't think there's any reason for that. I think a lot of people exist with that fear of like, oh, what can I give versus like, what am I going to get in return? When you're in the right relationship, just like a job, when you're in the right job, like, you don't have those same fears because you just know that it's going to work out and your efforts will equal something positive. So don't be afraid to love to your fullest capacity. You always leave having learned more than the person who held back. You know, it's no, I don't want to say dude, the masculine, you know.
What do you do when you're in a situation when that person is holding back, though?
Yeah.
Like, you know that they care about you and they want to be with you, but for some reason they're holding back. Like, what do you do? Like, just let them be? Like,
yeah, I think that it's like there's like a biological motivation that's happening that keeps people together. And I was working with this couple the other day who's gone through this like 13-year relationship. It's like completely tumultuous of like physical abuse and cheating and like just, you know, financial problems. And they've been through so much and they're like, but we still love each other. You know, we're still, you know, dedicated towards each other. I'm like, I don't care if you were dating Hitler for 13 years. You'd say the same thing. You know, that is the constant that when two people spend enough time together and have sex together and share cuddles together and have that, you know, chemical exchange, they're going to feel devotion. That's the natural. If you started smoking cigarettes, you're going to feel an addiction to that. It's, do you like it? Does it bring the best out of you? Are you happy? And if you're in a relationship with somebody who's holding back, which causes you to feel insecure or doubtful, or that you have to hold back in return and you don't feel good in it, you're going to feel the connection. So you have to just know that's a constant, but you have a right and you have the duty to yourself to put yourself in a better situation. And they have to respect that. You know, if they don't want to step up to the situation, then it unfortunately has to end there. I know I'm like a robot though. So that would be something that I think over time, you can definitely like train yourself to do. But I just think it's a year of like the time that we're in now. Like, people are like, dating now these days, it's so hard because there's so many choices, and like, that's amazing. You're talking about,
right.
You know, you could pick really and truly, and you should move on faster. People move on too quick. You're supposed to. It's not like we're back in the day where you had 10 people in your town, 3 of them were your cousins, so like you had 7, you know, and only one of them was like taller than you, so that was the person you married. You know, there's choices, and so don't limit yourself to having to fit someone into a box that doesn't apply. Like, change boxes just like that.
How do you feel about dating apps and websites and stuff? Are you for it?
Oh,
Do you suggest that?
Are you not for it?
No. It's
She's-
funny that
she's for it.
she asked that question because she be like,
I'm so
I ain't
old
with
school.
it.
I'm so old school. I need to meet you out in person.
Yeah.
And I used to be like Tinder, like swipe left, swipe left. Oh, he's hot. Swipe.
She's
Super
with
like.
it, and I'm not. How do you
Yeah.
feel about it?
I think it's amazing. It depends on, like, of course, I found, like, when I did online dating that I met really interesting people, but when I saw them in person, I'm always like, that's the thing that if I would have known, I wouldn't be here right now. So that was kind of the thing, but I always had a good time or I learned something new, but I'm like, man, like, you're shorter than I thought you were. Like, you had the pictures from the right side only. You got that weird, like, receding hairline on the left.
See,
Not
that's
that
what
it's
I'm
all
talking
about
about.
superficial.
I'm not about that
Yeah.
surprise
Physical
factor.
things, like my surprise factors are like personality, like weirdness, like tweaks, and it's just like I don't know if I could get with that.
I've had the people before where you think that they're joking in text and you're in person. I'm like, oh no, this is your serious personality.
Right.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
I thought you were really, really funny, but you're not. You're just off.
Yeah.
But I think it's, what's great about dating apps is it opens your mind to who could be attracted to you. I feel like we get into these patterns of like, this is the kind of guy who likes me. And that's the only person that we keep attracting over and over again. Because that's all we're looking for. Because that's where our expectations and comfort is. But dating apps is like, you never thought that Asian guy, would be an option for you. You never thought that this kind of person. But if you are the kind of person, who likes to meet in person, if you're good at that, like you actively say to yourself, I want to date a guy who, has a master's degree minimum. And then you research where people go, in the financial district after they've come out of their jobs, where they go hang out at bars, and you go to that place, then you're already doing the work of the dating app. But if you're not that person who's just, you're hanging out every single, you're going to Playhouse on Thursdays, you know what I mean? Like you're hitting the same circuit, wondering why you're not meeting the right person.
Bruh, and
Dating
then-
apps might be a
yes.
nice change of pace for you.
Ooh, do it for yourself. DIY Thursdays
Yeah.
and Fridays. Wow.
I didn't even know that because I'm bougie.
Ooh, right. Wow.
Bad and bougie.
I live
Space.
by this mantra. I own it. They love it. And that essentially is like it's delusion almost. Whatever it is that I own and that I think is best for me, I'm gonna assume they love it. Oh, he gonna love this. Even if they don't, doesn't matter. I've already made up my mind. I've chosen to say and to own this thing that I'm like, it doesn't matter. The world will accept it because it makes me happy. A lot of people exist and that they love it, then I own it segment. And so that's a lot of, with women who love having sex and they love, multiple partners and they love the novelty. They're high novelty seekers. And they're waiting for the world to love it before they can own it. It's like, it's not really ever going to work that way. I learned that, of course, through my career, especially. The more that people ask me, what do I do for a living? If I'm like, I'm talking about sex, but not just sex, safe sex and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, I had to really sit. And I had this amazing example of I went to go speak at this school and I had this driver come pick me up and it was an older lady. And then she was like, oh, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm speaking. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, sex. And then it was just silent. And then she was like, do you mean like condom uses and why people shouldn't have sex? And I was like, nah, more like pleasure, how you can like make it the best for you. And it was like silence. And like, I wanted to start backtracking with all my heart. Like, but I also talk about HIV. Yeah, I wanted to do that, but I'm like, I'm gonna talk about consent. But I was like, I'm gonna sit in this because that's what my truth is. And then she's like, you know what? My first husband, he couldn't find my clitoris if it was on his nose. And then she went into this like long conversation. But like I had to assert that energy, of I'm in this space before she like really accepted it. And because it is taboo and it isn't the norm, you can't expect for people just to love it and be on board, especially if you're not the champion of your own cause. So but I also think the whole numbers thing, fucking lie.
Right.
And no one really knows.
Right.
Girl, I be telling you that.
lie.
Don't nobody know the body count. Nobody.
Yeah.
The number is 3 always.
Never forget it.
If you know that number is going to represent you in a way that is not what your core truth is, because at the end of the day, like if you're a 30-year-old woman, you've been having sex since you were 16, it's very plausible that there's been 3 people per year that you were like, I felt a connection with.
Yeah.
And like out of years, that may not seem like a lot. And so, but over time, of course, that number adds up. And so it's just stupid. If you know that the real answer is 3, because there's probably going to be 3 people this year, who I may give this amazing opportunity, who may get the glory. So, but if you find the number, you pick it.
I love that.
I'm just pro. Like, obviously, you're honest about your sexual health.
Yeah.
You're honest about like what your status is, but all the nitty gritty, choose your own adventure.
It's the session where queens unite to share their light.